The day began like any other at Forrester Creations. Hope Logan had just returned from a design meeting and was preparing to meet Douglas for lunch. But when she arrived at the agreed location, he wasn't there. The nanny hadn't seen him. His phone was off. Minutes turned to hours, and as panic took root in her chest, Hope called Thomas. Within moments, the two were racing across Los Angeles, checking every park, school, and friend's house, but Douglas was gone. No calls. No ransom notes. No evidence of a struggle. Just a chilling silence that grew louder with every second. The police were called, but no leads surfaced. Days passed, and the investigation stalled. Hope stopped sleeping. Thomas stopped speaking. Brooke tried to help, but nothing reached Hope. Ridge pulled strings to get LAPD more involved. Even Steffi, still cautious of Hope, put aside past rivalries and offered every resource Forrester could afford. But Douglas remained missing. Then a package arrived. Hope received it at the Logan estate no-return address. Inside was a single item, a sketchbook. Not Douglas's, but eerily similar. On the first page, an image of Douglas tied to a chair, surrounded by mannequins. On the second, a crudely drawn triangle with an eye and the words, "The body is art." Hope dropped the book. Thomas picked it up, flipping through until he stopped cold on a final sketch. Two adults bowing before a throne, a child suspended above them in ropes, and the phrase, "One must be unmade." The FBI got involved. A profiler identified the imagery as cult-like, organized, ritualistic, and obsessed with beauty and symmetry. A single name surfaced during the investigation: the Order of Aesthesis, an underground sect known for its fanatical worship of physical perfection and aesthetic sacrifice. Allegedly formed in the late 1990s by a former haute couture designer whose mind cracked under industry pressure, the cult was believed to be defunct. But Douglas's disappearance and the drawings suggested otherwise. Hope and Thomas didn't wait for permission. They disappeared from the public eye, going underground to find the order. Using connections from the fashion world, Thomas tracked down whispers of invite-only events in abandoned textile factories, pop-up galleries with no artist names, salons where models vanished after runway shows. Then they found their way in a masquerade, somewhere in the desert outside Los Angeles. Hope posed as an avant-garde designer seeking divine inspiration. Thomas posed as her muse. Dressed in brutalist couture, they were granted access. Inside, they were immersed in a world of chilling perfection. Everyone wore white. The walls were lined with mirrors. Digital projections showed distorted human bodies being rearranged, reshaped, reconstructed. The cult leader, known only as Arcos, wore a mask of porcelain and spoke in riddles. "Beauty must cost," he said. "And your child is flawless. A divine error. He must descend, but only after balance is restored." Hope and Thomas caught a glimpse of Douglas sedated, dressed in ceremonial robes, standing still among motionless figures who whispered affirmations of worship. They tried to get to him, but the rules of the order were clear. Outsiders must undergo initiation. They must renounce identity, desire, and ego. And, when the time came, they must offer a sacrifice. Arcos told them, "You want him returned. But perfection is never free. One of you must be unmade." Hope broke. She begged. She screamed. She offered money, access, even herself in place of her son. Thomas offered to stay, to join the cult forever. But Arcos refused bargaining. One must be destroyed in flesh or in spirit. That is the cost. The child is worth too. Back at home, Liam heard whispers of the cult's location through Ridge and Steffi, and despite his terminal illness, he made his way toward the compound. Meanwhile, Carter contacted Bill Spencer, who used private mercenaries to track satellite images from the desert. but no one could get inside without being seen. Hope and Thomas were alone. The ceremony began under moonlight. The cult circled a glass platform suspended over a deep, mirrored pit. Douglas stood above it. Hope and Thomas were brought forward in stylized robes. Arcos handed them a ceremonial blade. "One of you must fall," he said. "Or he will." Silence. Thomas stepped forward. "I'll do it." But before he could move, Hope pulled him back. "No," she said, voice shaking. "You have other children. Douglas needs you whole." They argued quietly, emotionally raw. Then Hope stepped forward. "I will be unmade." She raised the blade. Before it touched her skin, gunfire rang out. Liam had arrived with Phil's team. The cult scattered in chaos. Arcos vanished into the smoke. Douglas was taken down safely by Ridge, who had followed secretly after learning the truth from Taylor. Thomas pulled Hope back as the structure collapsed. Sirens wailed as federal agents swarmed the compound. The Order of Aesthesis dissolved in one night of fire, arrests, and revelations. Back in Los Angeles, Douglas was safe. But nothing was the same. Hope was changed, haunted by how close she came to giving herself up. Thomas struggled with guilt, not just for his son's suffering, but for nearly letting Hope die. Liam, despite his failing health, had saved them all, cementing his final legacy not with words, but action. Douglas went into therapy. He spoke of dreams filled with mannequins and voices whispering beauty standards. He was young, but not untouched. The family surrounded him, trying to help him rebuild piece by piece. Hope and Thomas tried to find each other again, but trauma built walls. Trust became delicate. They loved their son, but whether they still loved each other was another question. And Arcos? Never found. But somewhere in the shadows of fashion, a new rumor began to spread of a masked figure recruiting again. Of beauty elevated through pain. And though the family tried to move on, they all knew one truth. In the world of the bold and the beautiful, even after you escape the cult, you never quite leave it behind.